What would make this session really powerful for you?
Always such a great question. One thing I'm noticing is I still feel like I haven't quite got that. This is how I help you. Like this is the outcome that I hope. So I feel like the outcome is almost like, what is that winning statement that you're like, this is what I do. And I'm quite connected to your like top value love and that you're serve love. And I've lent into that. And I always felt like it was that. But for me, it feels more like spreading the transmission of love. Like it's more of a, how can I hold a transmission and people get to be in that space and allow the energy to interact and we explore it. So the love feels like, I realized this only recently. I feel like the love is actually the how. So I feel like I've been starting with the how instead of starting with the why. So long story short, I feel like the best outcome would be why, not even why I'm doing it, but getting confident expressing the why and how that is of service, like why that is about somebody else's, me caring more about them than me needing clients. You know, that practicing, exploring how to say it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Interesting question. Very interesting outcome. Let's explore first what takes away that confidence from you. So when you're having a conversation with a client, let's say I am your client, let's do a little role play if we have to. My curiosity would be, let's say we were communicating, we are having a conversation, we're having a good conversation, and now you are at a stage where you're communicating. Why is it that it is important to you what you do? Or what is it that is important to you that you do? What would take away the confidence in you sharing that with me?
It's interesting as you say that. The thought that bubbled up for me is questioning whether my why is not your why. Like, I feel like living with a feeling of aliveness, feeling like you're fully experiencing your life, that you get to show up to all of it, that you get to say yes and to experiencing all of it is extraordinary living, right? Is powerful. And the thought that popped up when you asked me that question was that might not be what they're thinking. Like they might not actually want that. So perhaps it's asking another question instead of sharing what excites me about living a life that really feels like I lived it, like I've embraced it, like I've enjoyed it, like I've experienced it all, and I got to be all of who I am, you know, that full expression of who I am. Might not be what they're looking for.
Sure. So do you think your clients are offended or somehow concerned if you share your why while exploring opportunities for them? Why do you think it is not important for a client to know your intention?
I feel like there's perhaps an energy that shifts when I start to say it sometimes, that it feels like it's becoming selling rather than sharing.
Do you have partnerships in life, like
Maybe.
friendships, loving partner, kids, or something like that?
I have all of the above.
Okay, fantastic. That's awesome. Have you found yourself sharing your true purpose or whatever is your message to the world or your own personal passion with them? Do you find yourself being able to share that, or you feel like I can't really share that with them?
I definitely have close friends that I'm comfortable sharing this with, and I've played with it and they've heard all iterations of this. And yeah, so one in particular, my husband is more open to these conversations these days than he has been in the past. And my confidence in sharing it's probably greater as well. In the past, I used to introduce myself as a life and spirituality coach, and then I'd have to try and explain what spirituality was and why I feel like that perspective is important. And I felt like I was going round and round in circles a little bit, describing how it had helped me open my mind and perspectives to new possibility. And my husband is very corporate focused, needs to very clearly explain the outcomes to his clients, and it needs to be better, faster, cheaper, blah, 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 blah. And he's actually incredibly good at sales and marketing. But when we get into this conversation and it gets a little like, but that's not your funnel, Joe. You need to start at the top. And my brain just switches off and goes, that's just not me. That's not just me. And so I have this interesting resistance to, I feel like whenever I share it with him in particular, like I get the eye roll. I get the, okay, well, whatever. That's not a business. I don't know if, yeah.
Let's explore a little bit further. When you are sharing what is exciting you, do you feel that your friends find themselves more connected to you, or they step away from you as a person?
I would say the friends that know me well step closer. Most people that don't know me well step closer when they've been invited in the right way, when they're like kind of a little bit like-minded already. If I'm running a circle or a workshop or something, I feel like the energy, people are inspired by what I have to share.
The reason why I'm asking all these questions, Joe, is because you shared that when you are sharing what is important to you, why you do what you do, what is important in the process, you said it feels like you're selling something, right? And I wanted to lean into that. If our friends find ourselves to get closer, because now I can align with your purpose and I can see why you do what you do, and I can see myself in that story or living that story in one way or another, are you really selling or are you inspiring?
That's true. And I hear that. And there's still this little question that's going, it's perhaps specifically more in an enrollment conversation or in that conversation where you're about to start talking about working together more seriously and money becomes involved. And I'm sharing a vision for what they could create and trying to make this sense of what I can envision for them and see as possibilities feel real, knowing what I've experienced and knowing what I've seen in other clients. And yet somehow that's where this feels less like there's a flow to it. There's like a little block there that's just a little bit like.
The thing that we are really trying to explore here, Joe, is what is that block? Because the block seems like to me that if you would share your vision, you feel comfortable sharing with a friend because you're not in the frame I'm trying to enroll. But the moment I change the frame, even if the other person is perfectly aligned to wanting to hear your vision, you suddenly cannot find yourself saying it. You suddenly find yourself feeling challenged, feeling like you're selling something versus simply stating, as a matter of fact, what is the drive. Do you know when Martin Luther King Jr. gave a speech, that is the world famous speech, he never said, tell me your dream. He said, I have a dream. And he enrolled, of course, thousands of people into his dream of the world. The dream was greater and it was a beautiful dream, and we're still working on that dream. But I had a dream was what he said. He didn't say, okay, tell me your dream and I will align with each one of you what your dream is. Now, I'm not saying I'm Martin Luther King or you're Martin Luther King. Like, we still have a lot of work to do to match up to that amazing job that he did to start a revolution. But what I am alluding to is that there is power in our ability to get people aligned with what we believe. Because when we share what we believe, it allows people to be able to see themselves in that belief. Do you see what I mean? Now, that is not necessarily your challenge, though. Your challenge seems like to me, and let's explore this and see if it is actually truly your challenge or not. But the challenge that seems to me is that you have inherent resistance to terms like enrollment, to terms like money, and there is some kind of a dialogue that you have around these terms or what these terms mean. Would you say that is somewhat towards the direction of truth that may be the actual thing that we need to work on today?
I feel like there's definitely a layer of that. And as you were sharing the image of Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, and I have a dream, I I've written manifestos before, and I have that dream, and I know people love it. And I feel like perhaps there's also this resistance to the real dream that I'm dreaming for these clients is even bigger than where they're possibly able to see. You know, it's when they're unleashing their magic on the world. And I don't want to frighten them by what's possible either. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I think you're going to start that foundation and you're going to change these people's lives. And like, people might be like, oh, it's too much, too soon. I can't do that. And yet in 5 years, maybe they can. But yes, let's keep playing with the resistance, because you're so absolutely right that that's really is there. That really still is there.
We're going to lean into that in a hot second. Let's talk about what you just shared. Is where is it where we as coaches need to draw the line of what is scary for our clients and what is not scary for our clients? Where do you think that line is?
That's a great reflection, because how could I ever know where that line is for my client? Only they can know where that line is, right?
Even they don't know where that line is. And that is why they have a coach to explore the line. But if I, as a coach, define your fear and define where you can stop and how much you can take and what you can't take, am I giving power to you or taking away power from our coaching relationship?
Yeah. Taking it. Interesting. So
right?
interesting.
It's something to reflect on. And where is it that we get to say that our clients can or cannot dream, if we can share a dream or cannot share a dream, if we can work with a client to build that dream, if it is to come through them, right? Because we also don't want to lay our dreams on them, because that's our dream, not theirs, right? We got to bring it out with them, work with them to bring it out, right? And that, to be very honest, is the best enrollment process that you can have, is to help somebody really know what their dreams are. Because when you help somebody really realize their dreams, they get to go, oh, there is more potential than I had ever imagined myself. Maybe I need to talk to this person more so I can keep leaning into it.
Yes. And interestingly, I've had more than one client that had big dreams and we didn't keep working together. So I don't know if they ended up, some definitely did, because I've stayed in touch and you hear about the things that have unfolded. But there's a couple that had really big ones that they weren't even anchored. They weren't going on vision boards yet. They were just these things that got expressed as these random ideas almost of visions. And it would have been so magical to keep working with them longer term and just see how those seeds started to take hold, the roots. And yeah, love that.
One of the keys to work with clients that we love working with, and the clients that will continue to love working with you, is to not enroll them in working with us, and is to enroll them in working on their dreams. And that is our job, is to enroll them into saying, if you're confident that is your dream, how about we get you to work on it? And that's when they hire the coach, right? We get too attached to the idea that we are enrolling this person. You're not enrolling this person into anything. You're enrolling or helping the person enroll in their own dreams. That is what coaching is. Coaching is you supporting someone achieve what they want to achieve already in their lives, to take away those limitations in the way and go, okay, let's take that away. Here is how we will do that. Let's take this other limitation away. And as you take away all those limitations, soon enough, you find that the person has actually achieved the dream, or at least have moved towards it. Right. Now let's explore the whole idea of enrollment, because we're talking about it anyways. And that seems to be one of your challenges or concerns or areas where you kind of like doubt what you're really doing. What is enrollment for you? What do you think enrollment means?
Enrollment is taking a potential client through a conversation to explore what it is that they're most wanting to evolve into, grow into, transform, change, to the point where they actually say yes. Like, to me, the enrollment is the yes, rather than the call that you may have with lots of people that aren't ready or don't say yes. Enrollment means, yes, I'm ready to work on my dreams with you.
Okay, that is the right answer to give. Now tell me the real answer of what enrollment really means for you. What really shows up for you when you say enrollment? Because if that was the answer and that is the truth, and that is your truth, what are you resisting? Like, there's nothing to resist in that. You're enrolling them in their own dreams. There is nothing that you're asking as Joe of them. What truly is enrollment for you? Let's get honest about it. What does that mean? What does it show up for you? How does it feel like when you say I'm enrolling someone?
The resistance that I'm feeling is actually the piece that happens before that. It's actually what happens to get somebody onto that call. I actually feel like once I have the person on the call, I'm okay. I release the outcome. I want to give them the best conversation that they've had. And, you know, often I'll just send some people some details and get back to me. I do. I mean, I follow up. I'll say, like, do you want me to come back to? That's actually, I realize as you asked that's not where the challenge is. It's the piece before. It's the connecting in, inviting people into the enrollment conversation where the resistance exists.
Okay, walk me through what is the invitation process looks like for you, so we know where the resistance is.
Yeah, perhaps it's more that, like, I don't have one.
That's why it's painful, because you are just shooting darts in the air and hoping something sticks. Is that what is happening right now?
Yes, I'm trusting the universe to bring me clients, and occasionally it does, but there's not a structured, you know, people that have been in my space for a while, or I offered some free sessions and then they decide to stay on and do more sessions. There's different ways that people come in, but I don't have a process. That's absolutely the challenge for inviting people into an enrollment conversation.
Do you believe that if you gave universe something to work with, universe will do a better job in just bringing people to your door?
I really do. I really do believe that.
Right. So if that is the case, what if we made prospecting a system? So let me give you an example. Maybe it'll help kind of see what systems may look like. So for example, prospecting for me in my coaching environment where I coach companies or coach individuals, the prospecting system looks like going to events and talking to people, and then in an area of life where I want to actually create clients. So I would go to, and right now it's all virtual, but previously it was physical events where I would just simply go to, say, a business event where there's particular kind of companies that I work with. I would just go there and I would talk to people. And my agenda at the event is to talk to about 20 different people, 20 to 25 people per event. And that's it. Usually these events have hundreds of people in there, right? So 20, 25 people, I'll open a conversation. There's no intention to enroll. It's simply a conversation. And I would do about 3 or 4 of these over the course of the year. Out of these 20, 25 conversations, I'll find 2 or 3 really interesting. And I'm looking for 5 clients a year at the maximum. And usually I don't even have that much space because my clientele is a little bit more expensive. I'm usually looking for 1 or 2 new clients a year. And so I would end up saying, okay, I'll prospect maybe 2, 3 clients an event. If I did 3 events, I would have 6 prospects. Out of that, all I'm doing is following up with them by simply asking them very meaningful questions like, what are you working on today? Or what are you working on that seems to be troublesome right now? Or did you see this new update that's been happening? Is that a challenge in your company? I'm not trying to enroll ever. All I'm trying to do is conversations. Because I'm in conversations with them and I care and I genuinely serve, like you are very aligned with that as well, and express love by giving value to people. When it is time for me to enroll or when I have an opening, I can simply reach out and say, hey, we've been talking for about 3 months. I've, of course, helped you out a couple of times. I have a spot open up for my coach consulting project. Would you be open to having a conversation about it? It's a very easy yes for them to get into a conversation. It's a very easy yes for me because I actually know them at this point. So I'm not trying to enroll really, but it's a system, right? It's a very clean system. I know exactly I have to do about 3 events a year. I have to have about 60 conversations in total. All I'm looking for is about 2 companies per event, 2 to 3 companies per event, which are alignment with what I want to do or who I want to work with, right? The simple system. It's not complicated at all. Is there a system like that that Joe has?
At the moment, there is not a system like that Joe has. Joe, I have been exploring options. Like if I run circles that are at a lower price point, maybe people on my list will show up. I did run a while ago a summit, which was beautiful, and a lot of people signed up. So I got quite a lot of people on my list that way, that have many of which have hung around for the last couple of years. So I've been more, I feel like once people have had an exposure to my energy and been in a really present conversation, then that's an easier, you're absolutely right. Like having that personal connection with somebody feels important.
How does it feel like if Joe has, say, I'm giving hypothetical, I have no idea how your work day looks like and work week looks like, but let's say Joe works 5 days a week, let's say hypothetically. And out of that, let's say Joe says, I'm going to work every Tuesday in engaging with my people, just engaging, having conversations. I'm not trying to enroll. I'm not trying to say I need a client, because that's very visible energy. And when somebody really needs a client, actually clients tend to walk away from it because they're like, oh, you need something from me. I don't know what that is. And I don't want to engage in this energy. They don't even know why they are not getting attracted to it, but they are. They're not attracted to it, I mean. So what you want to do as Joe is simply say, what's my system for conversations? What is that system? And that system could be, hey, every month I do a live summit, for example, something that you said in passing, or every single week there's a live circle that I have where there are 8 people at the maximum that I invited. So I can have a real conversation with 8 people, right? And I'd say, may sound small, but 8 over 4 weeks is 40 people almost, right? Right. So if you engage with 40 people and you know them, because 8 people you will know, if you hung out with them for an hour, you would really know each one of them. You will tend to have about 40 new open conversations a month. 40 new open conversations a month may lead you to have about 40 by 12 is about 50 conversations a year. This is all approximately, I'm doing rough math, of course, right? So it's sorry, what did I say? 400 conversations, 500 conversations in the course of a year is what you'll end up having. 500 conversations in the scope of a year is way more than what you need probably to enroll and keep your practice completely busy. Right.
Well, now you've introduced this year long. This year, I'm only taking on 7. I'm only like 7 is I'm maxed out because I'm studying and I've got other things to do. And that's me. That's what I'm seeking this year.
If you're looking at 7 clients, you might be done in the next 2 months. If you just
I'm really
hoping
that I'll be done in the next 2 months. You're absolutely right. I know. I feel like I will be. I'm actually feeling quite confident about it, but I love having this conversation around where are those conversations going to start? Like, where will those connections begin?
Do you feel that having a system like we just talked about, it could look different than what we said, right? It could look whatever it needs to look like. But do you feel like if you had a system like that, it would take away your one of the fears that you have, which is enrollment? Do you feel like it'll go away, or you feel like, no, this is a band-aid solution, there's something deeper than that?
No, I feel like actually, I do feel that having a system, what that system is, I feel unclear about. And I guess I have a little bit of like, still a little bit of self-doubt as to what that might look like. But you're absolutely right. That's where the attention in my business needs to go. And I guess it's feeling into what would be the most fun and enjoyable way for me to start conversations where I feel enthusiastic about asking people what's going on for them, having meaningful conversations. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to give you one thing that will happen 100%. It happens with everyone who's finding a system. And that's why I'm kind of like, without even you actually exploring it, I'm giving you a footnote before to remember. So when we are building a business, we never want to find the system first. What we want to do is we want to create action first. And it is because if you've ever worked on your health goals, I'm using health goals because it's very personal to everyone, right? If you ever work on your health goals, you'll find that you will find something that you think works, you will take it, you'll be very highly motivated about it. And about a month to 2 months, or sometimes even sooner, you'll find your high motivation goes into a big dip, right? And the reason why it goes into a big dip is because you're trying to systemize something that you fully don't understand just yet. Right? That's why it goes into a dip, because what it tends to happen is you're like, oh, this is awesome, it's working. And then you realize that it actually is not really congruent with your body, or not really congruent with your soul, or not really congruent with your environment. And so you go for a big dip, right? And then it's really hard to come back from the dip. The only way you can come back from the dip is habits and systems, right? So what you want to be mindful of when you're doing something new in your business is be aware that the dip can happen, and that's absolutely okay. What you have to remember is that's the hard part. The hard part is not to get started. Getting started is actually easier. To get past that dip is probably one of the hardest things that you will do. right?
Mhm.
Because that's where you feel like everything fails, right? Has that happened to you in business where you started something super strong and a month or 2 months in, you were like, this is not going to work, right?
100%. Yeah.
That's the dip. That's where you're like, it's not working. But it's not that it's not working. Your motivation went for a toss, and the system that you thought was a system was just an exploration at that point. Wasn't system just yet. The clarity that I just presented of my system is not something I started with. That's the point I got to, where I know exactly how many events I have to do if I need to do enrollments, how many conversations I need to do if I'm looking to enroll. It's the reason I'm so specific about it is because I built that over 3 to 5 years. Right. So I had my dip where I was like, it's not working. I'm doing all these different things. I've sent out emails sometimes for people to be able to book me as a coach, and it bombed. So I was like, I have had those moments that I'm sure you have had in your life, and anybody that's listening to this podcast has had, where they've gone in and they're like, this is not working. Everything I'm trying is absolutely not working. Right. And that's where you need to find your systems. Like, okay, this is the worst stage, right? Where I feel like nothing's working. What is working at this point? Like, what is it that I am really actually still excited about, even when I'm feeling low? And then you build a system from there, because that system is what you will actually keep. You will not keep the other excited system that Ajit said on a podcast, because I don't know Joe well enough to really know what our system's going to be. I'm just taking something you said and turning it around and saying, hey, maybe this will work. Right. But Joe is the only person that knows what's going to work. Right. So Joe's got to throw something in the air, but the intention is not just throw on many things in the air and then hope something sticks. It's more like, let's throw one in the air. Let's find out, is it working? Oh, this is not working for me because let's say it's not energetically aligned. It's not soul aligned. It feels too much work. It doesn't feel like the right energy. Or this is perfect. I found the system great. Let's go. Let's double down. And even if I'm experiencing a little bit of a dip, I'm going to work on it to build a consistent habit around it. And once I've built it out, the system will be perfect. One day, right? It doesn't have to happen immediately. I'm sorry, I don't know why these scratching sounds are coming in. I don't know if you can hear them, but do you hear? No,
I
not for
can't
you.
unless it's
Are
not me.
you
Okay.
in your headphones? Are you hearing any scratching?
No.
Great. So my mic is working great. Anyways, coming back to it. So that's the first part. Do you think you could take the next 30 days or 60 days to try and discover a system?
Mhm.
And do you think if you find that system as you explore this, your challenge, because you said challenge is not enrollment, you don't feel challenged when you're in a conversation, you don't find resistance when you're making an offer, your resistance is to get people on the phone call, right? In sales, it will be called prospecting is your challenge. In my kind of conversations and enrollments, it'll be called how do you start a conversation, right? Because we are not trying to enroll anyone in anything. We are just trying to have conversations, good, meaningful, deep conversations. And when it is time for the right person, we are simply inviting someone to enroll into their own dreams. It's a little bit different than sales. People think coaching is sales. It's not really. Coaching is a very different enrollment process, because you're not necessarily enrolling them into you, you're enrolling them into themselves. And that's the biggest hurdle you will always cross when enrolling anybody into a personal transformation. It's not that they believe you. The biggest challenge is they don't believe themselves. Okay. So you're not, so what I'm really trying to reframe here for you, Joe, and for anybody that is listening right now, is that don't worry so much about how will I enroll somebody into my coaching program, because it makes it about you. And that's not what coaching is about. Right? If you can frame this a little bit differently for you and switch your narrative from how do I get somebody to believe in themselves, your energy around it will change.
I can feel it changing as you even say this. It's very powerful.
Now let's talk about the second part that you said is also concerned, or so I remember, and so I think you said, is that when you are asking for money, something seems to show up for you. Is that true, or is that something that I just picked up unnecessarily?
You may have recalled an earlier conversation where we did play with that in the CLC Q&As. It was, I feel like one of the challenges that I've had over the years is pricing at a point that feels comfortable for me and my skill set, and giving too much space to the one voice that's going, oh, but you can see a masseuse for this, like, why are you charging that? Or chiropractor, or someone that actually has way more years of training to get their qualification, and this is what their hourly rate is. And then I have coaching people, trainers on this going, that's a bargain, you should be charging so much more than that. And like these voices, like my mother, or not really like informed people on one side saying you charge too much, and these other people that say you're not charging enough, and finding that place that feels good for me, that I'm actually valuing my time, my skills, the effort that I've put into growing my abilities in this coaching business, or as a coach rather than the business, because that's a separate thing really, versus and I used to get it in the way with, well, what would people think of me? But I do feel like that's shifted a little. Like, I think if I told you, you'd still go, that's like cheap. You could charge way more than that. Like, people will still say that to me. And right now, I feel like what I'm charging, the 3 I've signed up for this year, it feels on point for me. It feels aligned. It feels great. And yeah, I'll probably increase my prices in the future. But right now, actually, I feel like I found my point. I'm confident in what I'm charging. I feel like I can offer. You used an amazing word in the training, actually, that I can't remember, in terms of wanting to give outstanding or exceptional, or for people to always walk away with this feeling that they got way more than they paid for it, way more than they paid for it. But there was a word you used. I can't seem to remember what it was, but I found that really powerful too. And so it just feels like that price point for me, actually, where I've landed, feels really good.
Yeah. Beautiful. Then we don't have to work on something that's already been worked on. And also, you're so right. I am no one to tell you what you should charge. If you feel comfortable where you're at, that's awesome. And that's what you should charge for now. The curiosity we all will always have as human beings, and you will have it, is what's more, right? And we'll always keep upgrading. That's just how life is, right? And so you will upgrade whenever it is time and whenever you feel aligned. So it's perfect. And so I'm glad that that resistance has been taken away already, and you feel super aligned with your pricing. You don't feel any resistance around money and so forth. Awesome. Top job. Is there anything else, Joe, that we can work on today that will help you get to the outcome that we initially started with?
Do you know, I feel like this is something that almost feels like it's in the way. And it is that, what is the phrase? Like, what is my elevator pitch? Or what is that magic couple of lines I can say to those people that are the right resonance for what I am, what I kind of stand for? That I don't want to say it in a salesy way, but like, that hooks them in. It goes, oh, I want to know more. That like, oh, I'd like to hear more of what you have to say. I'd like to just know a little bit more about you. And that's been evolving over years, and it keeps shifting and changing a bit. And at the moment, it's a little bit like, just embrace life. And but it's around like this piece of love people. And when I can help people be in that state of self-love, their self-compassion reaches everybody else, and we can make the world a better place. Like, ultimately, the why becomes, imagine a world of harmony and unity and love, that we could all enjoy and live in. And yet somehow that's the dream, right? That's the dream. That's the revolution. And it feels like there is something a little more succinct or concrete or tangible, maybe, than just, oh, we could make the world a better place. But I feel like that's what maybe gets in the way when people are like, oh, what do you do? I still actually have a tendency to say I'm a life coach, rather than I help people embrace their aliveness and enjoy the magic of life. That still feels a bit wishy-washy, or I don't feel fully confident to throw that out there,
Mm-hmm. And what do you think will make, so there are many layers to your questions, right?
Okay,
so
sorry.
No, don't have to be sorry. We are trying to help you as much as we can, right? So the first layer that I hear is almost like, what is the website tagline, right? Which is kind of the big vision that Joe has. Let's go to that in a second. The second part of it is, what do I say people that aligns people? right? So the reason why I'm separating them both is because when we speak to people, if we start from a place of what we want, they can't really wrap their head around it, right? Your vision of the world is not where you start the conversation. That's where you find alignment in a conversation, where they find camaraderie with you in a conversation, where they feel like you are the person to talk to further in the conversation. That builds a real relationship. But it's like saying, before saying hi, we start talking about our vision. That can't happen in a conversation because the person like, hold on, let's just say first say hi. Let's get to know each other before we can talk about where you are, hope what you're hoping for the world, right? It's just too much to even start a conversation, just to kind of warm up to a new person, right? That's what, if the person knows you, it's a different story. You can start from
Mhm.
where, what the vision of the world is. But when it's a new conversation, we need to first be able to bring the conversation together. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to start with, hello, how are you? How's the weather? You don't have to start there. You could start from something more meaningful. How was your day today? Did you have an exciting day, or did you have a day which was very busy? It's 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 deeper than, hey, hi, how's the weather, right? How's the weather doesn't really build camaraderie between you and the person that you're talking to. But if you really talk about, hey, I had a day where it was a little bit more exciting. I did this today. When somebody asks the question, hey, how was your day? Instead of just saying, hey, it was good, you actually answer the question, right? It builds a deeper meaning with the person, because one of two things will happen. The person who's not interested will walk away, will be like, okay, great, good to know. And they will give you a superficial answer, walk away. But that's not your person, anyways. Secondly, they will get interested. That's the second kind of person. The person that is interested in a relationship. They're interested in growth, most likely, because they finally found someone that is willing to have a meaningful conversation, not a superficial one, right? Now you open the dialogue in a way where it can give space for a relationship. It can create space for any kind of coaching relationship or other relationship. We don't know what the world's going to unfold, but it has space, it has more depth, it has more meaning. And that's the same that once let's say, for example, if you're in a conversation, you give a deep meaningful answer, usually the person responds with a deep meaningful answer. They don't try to not match your energy, right? So the reason why I'm saying that twofold solutions that you're looking for is, first is when you're engaging in a conversation, you're not trying to start with your meaning and purpose. You're trying to start with a deeper conversation. That's all your intention is. You're not trying to
Mm.
nail what you do in the perfect way, because it will change from the context of the conversation that you've set up, right? If your context of the conversation is somebody's having an anxious day, or somebody's feeling like they're really stressed out, your answer is not going to be, I'm a life coach. Your answer is going to be something like, if the question comes, what do you do? Is, I help people live a less stressful life, or I help people find more purpose and meaning in their day-to-day work, so they can be less stressed and less anxious and be more excited about life. You're still doing the same thing that a life coach
Mm.
does, right? You still have all the tools to be able to help that person or another person which may have a different direction or different challenge in life and different ambition in life. But you're not saying in out of context to the conversation. You're saying in context to conversation. So you don't have to know the
Mm.
perfect line, unless you're going to places like, for example, you need the line to open a dialogue that is deep and meaningful when you go to a thing like an event, for example. So, for
Mm.
example, if I am to go on events, and when I was to go on events, I would not just open any conversation. It wasn't random. It was very thoughtful of knowing, hey, this is what this event is about. And so the people that are coming in with this intention. So if I'm on a table with 5 other people and I want to not have superficial conversations about, hey, what do you do? But instead have a deep, meaningful conversation, I would open the conversation based on the context of the event, right? But I would open a meaningful conversation, right? I would open a conversation that would actually get them go, oh, okay, that guy has something, like, for example, if I'm going sitting with entrepreneurs that do millions in revenue, guess the newer entrepreneurs that do under 5 million, their biggest challenge is always team. They have a terrible team. They don't know how to do a team. They started a business. They are great as hustlers, but they have never actually thought about leadership. So I would open a conversation about leadership in a table like that, and suddenly everybody's like, hold on, this person actually has something important to say. Let's hear what he has to say. Even my introduction would change just because I know what conversation I'm opening, right? So I'm opening conversations pretty much all the time. So that's what you have to think about when you are in context of your clients. Now, once you have leaned into your clients, when you've already had a conversation, now you want to ask the question, of what is my purpose and how do I explain it. And here's the honest truth. It can be as simple as you said. I want to help 1 million people. I want to help 1,000 people live better lives. I want to impact 1 billion lives. Whatever it is attractive to the person because it's greater than what they ever imagined themselves doing. Right? I mean, how simple is Evercoach's statement or Mindvalley's statement? Impact 1 billion lives. It's not complicated. It sounds like, whoa, what? Train 1 million coaches. That's like, what? That sounds crazy from the point of view somebody who has never thought you could even have 1 million coaches in the world. Right? So it changes this. It doesn't have to be complicated because your vision is your vision. You just want to find simple words to be able to say it. And somebody who's listening is excited about it anyways, because your vision is greater than what they ever thought you will have. Does that make sense, Joe?
That really makes sense. And actually, I love the way that you shared this idea of that at the end of the day, we're just opening meaningful conversations and sharing what we do in the context of that conversation. Yeah. Yeah. That's what actually has been one of the challenges. It feels kind of disjointed to sort of throw out this lofty style, this is what I do. If somebody's just like, you don't know them that well, say it's at the school gate and they're like, what do you do? Like, are you the person to go into depth about my vision for the planet? Or I can just tell you that I'm a life coach, or like, you know, this is really like low level getting to know you stuff. Yeah. That was great. Thank you.
What if you reflected as a follow-up to this conversation? What if Joe reflected and tried to explore what could be some of the openers of conversations in different contexts that she meets people? And this would be the second step to finding your system as well, right? If your system is inviting people to a circle, the opening of the conversation changes, right? If your system is you reaching out to people, the opening of the conversation is going to be different because it's different contexts that they're coming in or going to, right? So you want to think about that. And the more you try, Joe, and this is for anybody that is listening into this conversation, the more you try, the more confident you get. That's the only secret to confidence. Confidence is not a feeling. Confidence is a skill. You build that skill like any other skill by actually practicing the skill off. You became a better coach because you practiced coaching. You became a better leader because you practiced leadership. If you're a great communicator, it's because you practiced communication. If you're great at brushing your teeth, it's because you brush your teeth for many years, right? So confidence is a skill. You can acquire it whenever you're ready. And that can start today, if today is that day that you decide.
Let that day be the day. Let today be the day.
Thank you so much, Joe, for coming in for this conversation.